Hello friends, today I am going to discuss with you all pharmacology of drugs used in therapy of shock. Shock is a state of poor perfusion. This poor perfusion leads to impairment and dysfunctioning of cellular functions. How? We'll see. Whenever there is a functioning of a cell, a tissue, and an organ system, it requires blood, which provides oxygen along with its different electrolytes. When there will be limitation of blood which is coming to the cells, this poor perfusion, what we are talking about, when this will be taking place, when this condition will be taking place for poor perfusion, there will be deficiency in proper functioning of the cell, and it will nothing but lead to tissue hypoxia, because this dysfunctioning is basically because of lack of oxygen, which is due to the circulatory collapse. There are different types of shocks, including hypovolemic, the name itself suggesting lesser volume. That means there will be less blood flowing through the circulatory system. Then cardiogenic shock, which is due to there will be deficiency or improper functioning of the heart as a pumping organ, so that a proper amount of blood is not going to be pumped. Then distributive shock, that means this kind of shock deliberate goes and distribute itself to different organ system and causes multiple organ dysfunction, like the septic shock, which is due to bacterial toxins. Then neurogenic shock due to any spinal cord injury or effect of anesthesia. And anaphylactic shock, because of anti hypersensitivity reactions. Causes of shock, like hypovolemic shock, if we discuss first, it can be due to hemorrhage, which is nothing but injuries or wounds, internal or external, which leads to bleeding and deficiency of blood. Then severe burns, which also lead to loss of plasma. Then intestinal obstruction, which happens due to post-surgical implications on the body. Then vomiting and diarrhea. Vomiting and diarrhea are concerned over this section because hypovolemia can be directly or indirectly a condition of loss of volume, which can be of blood, which can be of fluids and electrolytes too. When vomiting and diarrhea take place, there will be a deficiency in the electrolytes and water balance of the body. And when this deficiency occurs, the fluids which support the functioning of blood, the extrastitial fluid, the intra and extracellular fluids, they will cause problems in the proper functioning of the blood in the body. Cardiac causes or cardiogenic shock, which is actually studied, it is due to a myocardial infarction and other problems of the heart, and the functioning of the heart, which leads to ischemia or infarction like condition, which is at the most deliberating and taking the conditions towards the cardiogenic shock. This can be explained by an ECG, which is presented over on the slide, where you can see that there is ST elevation over here. This elevation section of the ECG provides a proof that this is causing shock condition, because ST, this segment which I am actually talking about here, is this part which is going to deal with the emptying of blood from ventricles towards the aorta and then to different part of the body. When there will be emptying from this section to the different parts of the body, there is a improper amount of blood which is going from the ventricles. This you can correlate with a normal ECG, which takes place, like for example as shown in this video. This video explains how a blood transfer between the heart from the atria to the ventricles, from the ventricles to the aorta, or the conducting cycle of the heart and its correlation with the ECG, showing how normally ECG pattern is obtained, right from the SA conduction to the contraction and emptying of the ventricles. See, when there will be SA node giving its charges to the AV, there is a P wave which is generated. From this P wave, This is going to transfer to the Purkinje fibers and the bundle of His, which causes the ventricles to get constricted, and later this valves open up and the blood from the ventricles is given up to the aorta, and then there will be relaxation of the ventricles. So you can correlate from this point that the blood after emptying from the ventricles to the aorta, there is a delay in the proper relaxation of the ventricles. The proper relaxation of the ventricles is delayed in the ST because this is a normal pattern of the ST segment. And what uh, problems are occurring? You can find it over here that there is a delay in the ST segment. This is what the correlation I need to explain by this point of view, that the ST elevation, it provides us that this is a type of shock. Septic shock is due to bacterial infections which releases toxins, and neurogenic shock, as I've said earlier too, that it is because of the maybe because of a spinal cord injury or an effect of an anesthesia which causes neurogenic shock, and it is nothing but a severe splanchnic vessel vasodilation because of which shock is actually occurring. Then anaphylactic shock due to type 1 hypersensitivity reaction, and other causes includes the respiratory cause. The respiratory is actually important because our circulatory system is always associated with the respiratory system along with urinary. When the problem is with respiratory section, that means the collapse of lungs or thoracic injuries or other complications in the respiration, this may automatically drive the deficiency of oxygen, which will again lead to the shock-like conditions. Pathophysiology of hypovolemic shock. Hypovolemic shock can be explained by this mechanism very easily, that how this hypovolemia causes venous return to decrease. This venous return to decrease leads to decrement in the preload. This preload, when it is deficient, it will automatically cause the cardiac output to decrease. Decreased cardiac output lead to hypotension, that means decrease in blood pressure. It has been noted that many a times there is less than 90 mm Hg of systolic blood pressure. Less than 90 mm Hg of systolic blood pressure is there in the shock condition, and perfusion failure and tissue hypoxia takes place due to this. When there is tissue hypoxia, automatically this lack of oxygen will lead to an organ dysfunction. An organ dysfunction and multiple organ failure is many a times leads to fatal effects. The classification of drugs which are involved in the treatment of hypovolemic shock includes indirectly acting non-selective adrenergic agonist. Examples: norepinephrine, epinephrine, and dopamine. These are non-selective agents. As they're named as non-selective agents, you can easily analyze by this that they will be having means its action over alpha as well as beta receptors. Both the receptors will be affected by these drugs, the norepinephrine, epinephrine, and dopamine. Dopamine will include alpha, beta, as well as dopamine receptors. All the three receptors over here. Then there is beta 1 selective adrenergic agonist like dobutamine. Dobutamine is beta 1 selective on its prioration, but it also has beta 2 effect in it. Then vasopressin. Vasopressin is a secondary class after the adrenergic drugs because vasopressin's mechanism of action is totally different. These drugs of the two classes are having somewhat similar track of action, but vasopressin has its action on vasopressor receptors, the V receptors, V1 and V2, which leads to different pattern of its action in the shock. Then corticosteroids. Corticosteroids are corticosteroids are not a drug of choice clinically, but they are experimentally in experimental pharmacology they have been proven to be effective. And then prostacyclins are given as an adjuvant, we can say, when there will be any effect related to the prostaglandin, which we'll see ahead in the explanation. And then the two major classes, which is essential in any sort of shock, because as I have said, shock can be a fatal condition. So supplemental oxygen is very much important. Oxygen that provides the external support to the working of the body. When you're providing any external support, then at this time what happens, we require a means additional effect or additional support of oxygen, so that there will be no deprivation of oxygen in the body, to give the body a proper support at a proper time. And this is given to the patients in any type of shock, because when a person is hospitalized, the first thing in a shock condition is preferred towards the oxygen, and then the therapy actually starts. Then IV fluids are important, because as we have seen that there will be imbalance in nutrients, imbalance in the oxygen. That means automatically the electrolyte imbalance will be there. So this crystalloids and colloids, these two types of fluids may help in the proper functioning of the internal homeostasis of the body, the fluid mechanisms. And the examples which includes here for crystalloids is dextrose, saline, and lactate ringer. And in colloids like dextran, hetastarch, albumin, mannitol, this sort of fluids are actually given to the given to the patients who are suffering from shock. These are important parameters which one should know while discussing the cardiovascular diseases at a broader sense. They like inotrope, vasopressor, chronotrope, and dromotrope. This inotrope is always related to myocardial contractility. When there will be increase in myocardial contractility, it will be positive inotropic agent. When it will decrease the myocardial contractility, it will be a negative inotropic agent. Then vasopressor are the agent which increases the blood pressure. Chronotrope are the agent that changes the heart rate. Chronotrophy is related to heart rate. When it will increase the heart rate, it is a positive chronotropic agent. When it will decrease the heart rate, it will be a negative chronotropic agent. And dromotrope are the agents which increase the cardiac conduction velocity. Cardiac conduction velocity, because if there will be delay in the conduction system, as we have seen earlier in the video how the PQRST is working, that was a slow motion video. In that we have seen in a very slow motion, but actually the cardiac cycle is about 0.8 second. It is a 0.8 zero point 0.8 second activity of cardiac cycle. That means it is happening very rapidly when this conduction velocity is decreasing. So dromotropic agents are required to increase the conduction velocity or the speed which is lagging. Norepinephrine, the first drug of non-selective category, non-selective adrenergic agonist category. It is the most widely used vasopressor. It acts on alpha 1. If acting on alpha 1, it is a potent alpha 1 agonist. It causes vasoconstriction, increases the resistance. It increases the resistance and rise the vascular resistance and rise the blood pressure. This is the mechanism of action behind the norepinephrine. Norepinephrine, it acts via alpha 1. Alpha 1 receptor, when it is acting on alpha 1, the subtype of G protein coupled receptor it is acting is GQ. And its path of acting is by increasing the phospholipase C, increasing the inositol triphosphate. It increases the intracellular calcium ions, which automatically or ultimately release or increases the muscle contraction. So cardiac contractility, the action which we are talking about here is the the vasoconstriction. The action which we are talking about is due to this effects of the alpha 1 receptor. Then beta 1 effects are seen directly in the heart. When the drug is acting on beta 1 receptor in the heart, it acts via the GS receptor. As acting on the GS receptor, it will cause positive chronotropic effect. As we have seen, positive chronotropic effect means it increases the heart rate. As it is increasing the heart rate, it will help in the proper functioning or pumping of the heart. It is done via It is done via increasing the activation of adenylate cyclase, increase in cyclic AMP, increasing intracellular signaling pathways, due to which it causes increment in the myocardial contractility. The adverse effect, major adverse effect associated with norepinephrine or noradrenaline is necrosis with extravasation. You can remember it with a correlation that N for norepinephrine, N for necrosis with extravasation. Extravasation is a condition in which due to necrosis there will be a loss of fluid. That is extravasation. So necrosis along with extravasation is the major side effect of norepinephrine. And the next drug of this category is epinephrine. Epinephrine is nothing but adrenaline. Its mechanism of action, it is mostly used. It is mostly used as a resuscitation procedure of cardiac arrest and anaphylaxis. That means when the condition is worsening and you want that the cardiac arrest should reverse back, the condition should improvise, so epinephrine is the commonly used or preferred drug. It acts on, being non-selective, it acts on both alpha and beta. In that also it is having its action on alpha 1. Alpha 1 by GQ, similar pattern, acting on GQ. Then if the cascade will include phospholipase C, IP3, inositol triphosphate, then calcium ion increment, and the muscle contraction, then leading its effect to beta 1 and beta 2. When acting on beta 1 and beta 2, it has its action in both the type by GS. GS subtype is activated here. By GS subtype, it is activating the adenylate cyclase, increasing the cyclic AMP, then increasing the intracellular signaling pathways. But the thing one should remember over here is its action on heart and the smooth muscles of bronchi are a bit opposite. In the heart, beta 1 causes myocardial contractility, whereas beta 2 in the bronchial smooth muscle causes relaxation. So this one should not get confused over here. The action is stimulatory. Whenever the adrenergic system works, at beta 1 it causes contraction in the heart, and in beta 2 it causes relaxation of the the bronchi smooth muscle. Here again I have tried to provide a mnemonic for adverse effects to remember about epinephrine. You can remember it as H hand, that is hypertensive crisis, hyperglycemia, angina pectoris, necrosis, and dysrhythmias. For easy to remember, I have put a mnemonic over here, that is H hand: hypertensive crisis, hyperglycemia, angina pectoris, necrosis, that is and dysrhythmias. We'll move over to dopamine, the next category of non-selective drug. As mentioned earlier, dopamine works via the D1. It is working via D1, beta 1 and alpha 1. Alpha 1, beta 1, as discussed earlier, it will be having alpha. If alpha 1, it will have GQ effect, and it will act on phospholipase C, IP3 pathway, and then it will cause vasoconstriction by increasing the calcium ion concentration. And on beta 2, it will act on the heart. At beta 1, sorry, it will act on the heart muscles by causing contractility, increases the cardiac output. And D1, the first time we are discussing D1, so I'll talk a bit about it. D1 receptor, it is actively working in the nephron. It is working in the nephron of kidneys. In the kidneys, you can see that D1 receptor is having its action on the PCT first. In the PCT, it is increasing the cyclic AMP in PCT. It is decreasing the sodium proton exchanger, decreasing the sodium potassium ATPase pump in the loop of Henle. These are the actions by D1 is actually acting. By the kidney, it also interferes in the regulation of blood pressure and causes increase in renal perfusion, because of which the blood pressure can be balanced. As we all know that the glomerular filtration and the urine formation process having its big hand in regulation of blood pressure via the renin-angiotensin system in the body. Then its adverse effect are I have provided the mnemonic for this as TAND. TAND, in which the A and D is the previous one, anginal pain, necrosis with extravasation and dysrhythmia. The H, double H, R have been replaced by T. Here you will not see the effect of hyperglycemia and hypertension crisis, but here there is an effect of tachycardia, that is abnormal increment of the heart rate. So the adverse effects of dopamine are TAND, tachycardia, anginal pain, necrosis with extravasation and dysrhythmias. Dobutamine. Dobutamine being beta selective, it is a beta selective agent. When it is acting on beta 1, it is causing stimulatory action and increases the heart rate and causes cardiac contractility, while on beta 2 it mediates the vasodilation. Its adverse effect is tachycardia. Then the next category of drug, that is vasopressin. As discussed earlier, vasopressin, the ADH, antidiuretic hormone, it is coming from the posterior pituitary. As we have been known this earlier, that posterior pituitary liberates two types of hormones, ADH and oxytocin. So ADH is coming from that side, and it increases the permeability of DCT and CT, that is the distal convoluted tubule and the collecting tubule of the kidneys, and it causes increment in the water retention in the body. Likewise, by an indirect way, it is going to balance the fluid and volumic condition of the body by V2 receptors and by V1 receptor, which are present in the smooth muscles of arteriolar wall, and it causes smooth muscle contraction and vasoconstriction. You can see the mechanism in this flow chart, that how the V1 and V2 receptors are acting. V1 causes increased systemic vascular resistance, and V2 receptor causes increased blood volume. This, both the conditions together, they are actually helping in increasing the arterial blood pressure. This is a choice of drug when there will be resistance to the action of norepinephrine in as a inotrope. When there will be an inotropic resistant shock to a patient, when the person is not responding to the administration of norepinephrine, vasopressin proves to be a good alternative for such type of shock condition. Here again, I have given a mnemonic for adverse effect, which is you can pronounce it as PAN, that is bronchoconstriction, headache, headache, abdominal cramps and nausea, and it can also lead to water intoxication and hyponatremia. One thing I will talk here, that the previous drugs having a similar type of adverse effects, because their mechanism of the similar type, they were falling in the same category. They are directly acting via the adrenergic system, so their side effects were somewhat related. But vasopressin is acting in another way, that's why its side effects are completely different from those. So easy to remember as VAN: bronchoconstriction, headache, abdominal cramps, nausea, and it can lead to water intoxication and hyponatremia. Then corticosteroids, as I've said earlier, it is proven to be useful in experimental pharmacology, but clinically it has been not preferred. But if it has to be considered to be of use, it is because it suppresses the formation of NO and of prostaglandins, because of which they are not of means they are not been proven to be a benefit if the shock is established. That means already if the shock has been established, then it is of no use. Now, the corticosteroids may not prove to be helpful. Then prostacyclins. Prostacyclins are useful in patients with inappropriate platelet activation. Those patients who have any problems in platelet activation, for such patients, prostacyclins can be given as adjuvant in the therapy. Then this is a flow chart describing the mechanism of the flow of shock which is taking place. It also includes this bacterial endotoxin, burns, allergen, and this type of uh, conditions which also leads to shock. Other types are also included along with hypovolemic shock over here. And the effect of drugs can be they can be revised over in this slide, that how dobutamine and adrenaline can show their effect on cardiac output. They cause negative effect on this, they increase the cardiac output. Then transfusion fluid will increase the circulatory volume. Then adrenaline and prostaglandin will act on vasoconstriction. Corticosteroids and adrenaline will act against the release of mediators, which are going to cause the anaphylactic shock. So in such way, a revisionary flowchart is given here from the reference of Rangendale. I have obtained this chart from that, so that a easy view can be taken, and we can revise from this chart how the shock is prevailing with different steps, and how the different examples of different classes can help at different stages of shock. Then cardiogenic shock. Cardiogenic shock, as discussed earlier, caused due to the lack of working of the cardiac as a pump after the myocardial infarction or ischemia due to loss of LV function. So there is a hypoxia, cardiac output reduction is there, and it leads to lack of oxygen, and there will be reduction in stroke volume, and automatically there will be a cardiogenic shock generated, which has been very much efficiently earlier explained uh, by the ECG provided, how the ST elongation is taking place and how there will be insufficiency due to cardiogenic cause, how the ST delay is going to lead to deficiency of blood, and the uh, increment of cardiogenic shock or spread of cardiogenic shock in the body. The treatment, it includes aspirin, beta blocker, morphine, heparin, then proper oxygenation. As I have mentioned earlier, oxygenation you will be finding in almost every type of shock. Oxygen is very much important. Then IV fluid if there is no pulmonary edema. There should not be any pulmonary edema, because pulmonary edema is a condition in which there will be fluid accumulation in the lungs. So if there will be no pulmonary edema, IV fluid is a good, means it will help beneficially. But if pulmonary edema exists, if pulmonary edema is the chance, then IV fluid has to be avoided. And then drug therapy is used, including dopamine, which increases the heart rate by D1, alpha 1 and beta 1. Then dobutamine, which is a beta selective drug, and combination therapy of both may be more effective, because there will be a selectivity as well as dopamine receptors, they take place over here. And thrombolytics are also considered in cardiogenic shock as a treatment. Then septic shock. Septic shock, as you can see in this chart, is due to the organisms or causative agent which are causing different systemic inflammation and inflammatory responses in the body. This will cause diffusion of endothelial disruption, and this lead to hypoxia and organ dysfunction. Then severe sepsis, if occurs, leads to multiple organ dysfunction and lead to septic shock. So this kind of mechanism is followed. This is majorly due to different type of bacterial enzyme bacterias or causative agent which causes release of infection and toxin in the body. This can be easily corrected by fluid and electrolyte balance. You'll be using crystalloids and blood transfusion. Then appropriate antibiotics, preferably the third generation cephalosporins and aminoglycosides, are used over here for septic shock. They work on the and they work very proficiently on the microorganisms, and decrease the amount of microorganism. They decrease the amount of microorganism in the body, and try to means they try to suppress the microorganism, and then adjuvant therapy is continued to make over or take over the damage meant to the body. Critical care is very important over here. Oxygen ventilator support is important, because sepsis and shock leading to this is a very severe condition, because the body is already under infection, and after the invasion of a microorganism in the body, and then a condition which is leading to the insufficiency of the cardiac system, is a fatal or a very crucial condition of the body. So ventilator and oxygen play a beneficial role over here. Then our drug treatment, dopamine, noradrenaline, are always useful to maintain the blood pressure. And dopamine, which causes the which also balances the urine output, because as we have seen earlier, its function is over the loop of Henle and in the DCT, where it is going to decrease the sodium potassium exchanger and sodium potassium ATPase pump, and likewise it helps in balancing the urine output. Then short-term use of steroid therapy can be given to the patient to fight or protect the cells from the effects of endotoxemia, because toxins have been released in the body in septic conditions. So to fight or to protect the cells against this endotoxic toxemia, we can use a short-term therapy of corticosteroids over here. Methylprednisolone and dexamethasone can be preferred in endotoxic shock. Then anaphylactic shock. Anaphylaxis is a condition of hypersensitivity in the body, which is can be associated with swelling of the conjunctiva, running nose, swelling of lips, then skin, hives, itchiness, flushing. These are the important signs of anaphylaxia. This anaphylactic shock is always associated with this hypersensitivity reaction. So when a condition is due to hypersensitivity reaction, because hypersensitivity reaction causes the CNS to increase anxiety. At the same time, it attacks the respiratory system. It causes shortness of breath, then hoarseness, pain with swallowing, cough is there. So shortness of breath, that means that automatically there will be oxygen deprivation. Oxygen deprivation will always lead to hypoxia and associated conditions. So all this together is going to lead towards the means functioning of it is going to lead towards the damage to the normal functioning of the body, and the vomiting, diarrhea are also associated with this, and as we have seen that they also causes imbalance in the body fluids. So altogether anaphylactic shock also causes damage and leads to a shock condition in the body, which can be treated by to be epinephrine to be considered as a first line drug. Epinephrine is considered to be a first line drug in the treatment of anaphylactic shock. Then antihistaminic drugs are preferred to decrease the allergens associated with this condition. Then beta 2 agonists like salbutamol is given to help the respiratory problems, as well as to increase the heart as well as to provide a vasodilatory effect on the bronchial tissues. Then corticosteroid, as we have seen earlier, that they help to protect against the internal toxicities if the anaphylactic shock has led to any allergenic reaction inside, and which can be means uh, helping the antihistaminic effect on together with the corticosteroid. Then neurogenic shock develops due to secondary which is a secondary to a sudden loss of autonomous nervous system. If the autonomous nervous system has sudden loss have been faced by that system, so there will be a spinal cord injury resulting into vasomotor tone and impaired cellular metabolism, and thus distributively it leads to a neurogenic shock. And its management is accomplished by airway support, as I have said earlier. oxygen Oxygen therapy is of almost importance over here, so airway support, then fluid replacement by crystalloids or colloids, then dopamine, ephedrine, and atropine for bradycardia. If bradycardia is taking place, so atropine can be used as a measure to improve this condition. So with this, we end up with the pharmacology of shock. Hope it have been, I hope I have been approached to the extent of the explanation and tried to complete the different classes of shock and produce the effect of certain drugs along with their mechanisms and adverse effects. Hope to see you soon in my future videos. Stay tuned and thanks. Stay tuned and thanks for watching.